My name is Jason JROCK Houston, and you're listening to Remembering Woodstock. And along for a ride, as always, is my good friend and co-host Vince Lupo. Welcome again, Vince. How have you been doing?
I've been doing well. Just trying to avoid the virus and keep playing the drums here at home and keep up on things and just trying to get through life just like everybody else.
That's great to hear. So now, today we're going to be talking about Joe Cocker. You shared with me probably your two favorite artists that played Woodstock was Jefferson Airplane and Joe Cocker. So let's get right into it. I forget if you said, did you see Joe Cocker perform that day as well?
That's right. Okay. That's right, because we had gotten up there very early, about 5:30 in the morning. And when we got to the site, the airplane was just taking the stage. So there was that lull between the acts. And according to their website, I went on the Woodstock.com website, and it said he went on stage about 2 in the afternoon. So that seems about right in my mind. Remember the sun being, it was afternoon, certainly. Yeah. So 2, I mean, that's what they say. So it's got to be pretty right. And what I remember most was how his voice was incredibly strong that day, and that the band was superb. So from there, let's go.
Okay, so now I went on the same website and doing research for this, and it was saying actually, interesting thing about Joe Cocker said is it didn't really go into detail and explain why, but the first 2 songs in his set list featured the band, but without Joe Cocker. I'm not sure why that is, but I noticed that it said that after Cocker's performance is when the rain and the flooding started.
Oh, it did, and it was almost immediately when they were getting done. We'll go back to their set list in a moment.
Yeah.
But just as they were wrapping up, literally just wrapping up, you could see coming from behind the stage dark rain clouds, really dark, and they were motoring across. So I would say within the half an hour of when they were done, maybe less, it poured.
Wow.
And that's what you saw in the movie, was that torrential downpour, the mud, and the legacy began.
And let me ask you, Vince, going back to your memory, like when you were there that day and you left to go to the show, do you remember hearing any weather reports that rain was coming, or was it kind of like totally unexpected?
No, well, the second one was unexpected. The first one we heard about that day, and it rained a little bit overnight. When we got there, talking to some of the people that were right next to us where we decided to plot our blankets out, they said it rained a little bit, the ground was a little damp. We got there and put our blankets down. The ground was not damp at that point in time already, But that little bit of rain actually helped create the mud, because when the second one came, it was already damp.
Yeah, oh boy.
Underneath, so.
And I was also reading about Joe Cocker. Okay, he had been in the music business for like a few years already at that point, but the same year, 1969, he not only did he play Woodstock, but he also played the Isle of Wight Festival. And in any event, it was after his performance at Woodstock where he really became well known. I mean, he became more of a household name, and they said that probably the song that really did it for him that day was his cover of the Beatles, With a Little Help from My Friends.
That's right. And just because you're younger, and for anybody who doesn't understand the timing of all of this, that song was released, of course, by the Beatles on Sgt. Pepper in '67.
Yeah, a few years before.
Summer of Love.
Yeah.
So other people had done covers of it, I think. And on this website, also found out that Richie Havens had done it 2 days prior.
Yeah, can you believe that? Wow.
So this was a song that was being covered, and as we know, other people covered it after that. But it was, what had happened was he started to emerge in about '68, early '69 on the airwaves. So in New York, where we were all from at that time. So we knew his version of this song.
Yeah.
It wasn't like that was a surprise when he played it. It was the highlight of the set, of course, and being the very last song. But in here, in this set list, and of course that's what really set him off to international fame and doing everything else. And in fact, by reading his Wikipedia page, 10 years later, there was somewhat of a Woodstock reunion type of show over in England, and on that was also what's his name? Richie Havens.
Wow.
And somebody else from the first who had been part of this
event.
Kind of a remembering Woodstock event. For a 10th, that's but in England.
Wow.
They didn't have that. They had the Isle of Wight, as we know. He was a big star at the time. People forget, and he had 22 albums.
Yeah.
You think, this guy had a few hits. No, he had way more than you realize.
Oh yeah.
Big songs too. And I don't know. Do you remember it was a theme song from the Wonder Years.
Oh wow.
The TV show.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
You know, so that song just kept on keeping him famous. When you go down the set list of the day, why they did that, it was show business. I guess. You know, the band comes out, warms up a little bit with these songs. They had no opportunity to warm up backstage.
Yeah, and also really. I read on the Wikipedia events, oddly enough, see, Joe Cocker, he's of course an Englishman, originally from England, and I was reading that his version of a Little Help from My Friends reached like #1 in the UK where he was from.
Right, and it became big here too.
Yeah.
Which he was known by us as more of a cover guy.
Yeah, that's what I was interested to kind of learn in doing the research today, because of course I've heard people, not just you, but I've heard people all my life say what a great singer, what a great performer Joe Cocker is, and I was kind of surprised to learn that he a lot of the stuff he did was like covers, but he was a great cover artist in the sense that he would do these songs and really own them and make it his own. I mean, also that I see he has in his catalog of music, he had a song called "I Don't Need No Doctor," and I'd heard that song years ago, like by the British rock band Humble Pie, thinking it was a Humble Pie tune, and then I come to find out, no, actually, it was originally done by I don't know if you remember Ashford and Simpson.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and they were the ones that wrote that.
Yeah. So with his influences, according to what this is, and you can hear it in his voice, was Lonnie Donegan from over there, skiffle guy.
Oh wow.
And Ray Charles. When you listen to his gravelly voice, you hear Ray. I hear Ray Charles.
Oh yeah.
I can certainly hear it. And in that show, he did. I'm looking through it. Let's see. Let's Go Get Stoned.
Oh, I love that song. I was listening to that today, and it's like nothing I ever heard before.
We knew that song from Ray Charles.
Wow.
But to hear him do it, it was like, oh wow! Of course, it was the hippie culture. Let's Go Get Stoned. His voice fits Ray Charles perfectly. And also, get this, Ray Charles also did "I Don't Need No Doctor."
Wow. Yeah, I was reading that too. But Ray Charles, like you think of him as a piano man, you wouldn't think of him doing songs like that. But even "I Don't Need No Doctor," that's a good example, because like the British rock band Humble Pie, they really kind of rocked that up from what it originally was.
Right. One of the songs that he did, smack in the middle of his set, was "Feeling All Right." Now, for those who are uninitiated, that song isn't a Joe Cocker song. Most of these are all covers.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's what I was interested to learn. Yeah.
That was "Traffic."
Yeah.
It was from "Feeling All Right." It was the lead track, I believe, on the one of the tracks on the second "Traffic" album with Dave Mason. So that's really a Dave Mason song.
Wow.
And who knows what tomorrow may bring, and 40,000 Headmen are off that same record. The second Traffic album, which Traffic was huge back then.
Oh yeah, I mean, people forget Steve Winwood. Yeah, that's where he originally came from. Yeah.
Exactly. And before that, Spencer Davis Group for him.
Yeah.
But the band did those 2 songs off of that record. It was like, oh well, we knew this stuff already.
Yeah, and you know Steve Winwood, people think of him from that '80s hit he had, "Higher Love," but if you go back to some of the older Traffic stuff, I mean that sounds nothing like what he did with Traffic. Traffic is like the classic Steve Winwood stuff that you should really check out.
No, definitely. And I actually saw him back in that day, back east. And doing a full concert, a Steve Winwood concert.
Wow.
Who he brought out towards the end was his former drummer and harmonizer, Jim Capaldi.
Oh wow, amazing!
Who I
amazing.
adore.
Yeah.
So I got to see Traffic in 1970 or 71. It was 70. It must have been
Wow.
right after the Barleycorn album had come out, and then again in 89 or 90 over at a place called Jones Beach Marine Theater on Long Island, a great place to see
Oh wow.
a show. But that's a sidebar. So all of these other songs are essentially all covers. The band was great. He teamed up with this Chris Stainton, who has been in so many other different groups through the years, including the Mad Dogs and Englishmen thing.
Yeah.
And then after that, he's done a whole bunch of stuff.
And then I want to talk a little bit about the song "Dear Landlord." That's another one I just kind of I was getting off on today. Kind of a more upbeat tune, but it's kind of I just dug the lyrics, you know. And that's actually a Bob Dylan song.
Yeah, absolutely. And hey, he even did "I Shall Be Released" by the band.
There you go.
I mean, he did so many different things, but his voice so soulful.
Yeah.
So connect with you, and I just love that guy.
Yeah. In fact, there was I forget what track it was. I have to go back and see later. But I was checking they had like a video from his performance and like sound bites from Woodstock, and there was one track on there that was like the live performance was like 12 minutes long. I think that's actually I Don't Need No Doctor was like 12 minutes long. I thought, wow, one song, you know, one live performance, but that's really how you jam a song out, I guess, live.
Right.
Yeah.
And with a little help from my friend, instead of being 2.5 minutes, it was about 5 minutes the way they did it.
Yeah.
And just really cool. The band, I'm telling you, that band played so tight, so well. That was one of my real memories, was how tight that band was. Just a wonderful performance to be able to experience live.
Yeah. Another tune I dug that they did that day. I checked out. It's called "Do I Still Figure in Your Life," and that's originally done by somebody I've never even heard of, Pete Delos.
Don't know that performer.
Yeah.
And I don't remember some of this stuff that was played that day.
Yeah.
But it was a consummate, one of the real true highlights of Woodstock, and of course that catapulted to total fame.
Yeah.
We all know the later songs that were hits by him, "Up Where We Belong," Jennifer Warren, and there's another one that's escaping me. You Are So Beautiful.
Oh yeah.
Which is a cover of a Billy Preston song.
Wow. And Billy Preston, of course, as we know, has done stuff with the Rolling Stones throughout the years.
Yes, and in fact, when they started their band, Vance and the Avengers was their first band. They actually supported the Stones in their hometown of Sheffield at some Rolling Stones show in '63 when the Stones were getting really big before they broke here.
Yeah.
So they have an association, him and the Stones.
Oh well, yeah, and it's interesting because a guy like Joe Cocker. I mean, when we think of all these great singers, typically, people like to write their own material. Right? I don't know why he didn't do more of that, but I will say it's interesting that he covered a lot of people's material, and yet he was able to have quite a successful career up until the very end. I mean, he passed away like December 23rd in 2014 from lung cancer, but right until the very end he was out there performing and putting out albums, you know?
That's right. And in fact, he was performing right up until about a month or two before he passed.
Yeah.
From what I can remember. Just to run through some of his career, he had that band from 61 to 66. They dissolved that and made the Grease Band, which was 66 through 69. At the end of 69, after they did the Isle of Wight and all of that stuff and came back home, he didn't want to tour again.
Yeah.
But they had an American tour that was already booked for the next year, 1970.
Wow.
A 48-city tour.
Yeah.
That's a lot of touring. Now, what I remember about, there is a wonderful documentary about his life. And before this tour got kicked off, when he didn't want to go, he got forced to put this band together.
Wow.
It was one of those things where when you're hot, your record people want you to work yourself to death.
Yeah.
And they formed the Mad Dogs and Englishmen, 20 musicians.
Oh, wow.
One of the people in that was Jim Keltner, a drummer who was a Ringo Starr influenced type drummer. And he said it was just one wild party.
Wow.
Also, part of that drummer was Jim Gordon, who eventually drummed with Eric Clapton in the Derek and the Dominoes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I got the good fortune of seeing them as well, as Derek and the Dominoes.
Yeah.
And he's been long lost to us, and a wonderful studio and live drummer as well.
Wow.
Keltner was the bomb, and he was like the Ringo replacement kind of a guy, you know. It played with George Harrison on the Bangladesh live concert that they did, and Keltner's been on so many.
Well, you know, and I was interested to learn. There's a song that he played during his Woodstock performance towards the end of his set called "Something to Say," and I was reading that. Interestingly enough, Jimmy Page, you know, he was a session player back in the day, but he played some guitar on the studio version of that.
Yes, and the third album, as we were doing this research, his third album is called "Something to Say."
Wow.
So he did that song before they even did an album. 2 years before they did that record. So just great at doing covers, picking the covers, you know, picking the right ones that would fit his voice. Just a great time to be a music fan back then, a music lover, and to live through all of that.
And of course, like I mentioned earlier, is a song. You'll have to check it out later if you're not familiar. It's called "Do I Still Figure in Your Life?"
Do I Still Figure in Your Life? Yes.
And that's originally by some guy. I looked it up, and it's the Joe Cocker version sounds quite different. But the original artist is this guy named Pete Dello. It didn't say what the original year was it came out, but see, that's kind of interesting when you do it. When you do a cover by somebody that maybe influenced you or you dug the song yourself, but it's not as popular and a lot of people don't know about it, then people are hearing the Joe Cocker version and they think, you know, they have no idea about the original artist, and it's kind of like, that's a great way to kind of make a song your own, you know?
Absolutely. And there have been other bands that have done the same thing, taking covers or singers.
I mean, one band that comes to mind is like Tesla. They had that big hit with Signs all those years back. And I mean, I'd heard the original version, but it wasn't as played as much on the radio. But once they did their version, I mean, it just took off. In fact, I interviewed one of the guitar players, and he was telling me, yeah, you know, our version outsold the original version, but you know, they made all the money. yeah.
So after they put that Mad Dogs and Englishmen, which was only another couple of years with that big band, he had a hit with the cover of the Box Top song called "The Letter."
Oh wow!
And it's almost as though the original version of that pales in comparison because it's a big band, a big changed arrangement. But you know it's the song "The Letter." And you go back and you hear the original, you went, "Oh, this was the original." And it's just great. Just great.
And
it's did a great job.
And it's hard to pigeonhole Joe Cocker because I mean, you could say he's a rock singer, you could say he's a blues singer. He's kind of everything, you know. I mean, a perfect example of that. Another song they played that day is called "Just Like a Woman." I was listening to the original studio version today, and it's like a real kind. I don't even know if you describe it as a blues tune, but it's a real kind of interesting type of song. And so I'm like, man, this guy can do it all. He can do the blues. He can sing a ballad. He could do a real rocked up tune. He could do it all.
Isn't it Just Like a Woman, Bob Dylan?
I think so. I think so too. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where that came from.
And of course, being a Rolling Stones fan yourself and playing in a Rolling Stones tribute, a number of years ago when the Stones put out that Unplugged album, I think in the early '90s, they also covered Bob Dylan's "Like a Rolling Stone," fittingly enough,
and it's a really good version too.
Yeah.
That version. I mean, it really does the original one justice.
Yeah.
This guy was just so cool. Had his demons.
Yeah.
Didn't like going on the road a lot. They forced him to go on the road.
Yeah.
He had big time bouts with alcoholism. In fact, when they did the Mad Dogs and Englishmen, Michael Lang, who put together Woodstock, came in and managed him
for
a while. He says, "Look, do this tour except for one thing. You got to sober up.
Wow.
You got to be clean. You can't go out there." And he did.
Yeah.
But he still didn't like being away from home. Interestingly, later on in his life, he met a woman here in the States and married her and settled in Colorado.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
Where he's buried.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he had a ranch that was up there, a farm, I guess you want to call it.
Wow.
And he married a gal, stayed with her. I think there was about 86, 87, if I remember what I read.
Yeah.
And right up until his death.
Yeah, that's amazing to hear because, I mean, like I said, I've heard for years from people like you and other people I know that, Joe Cocker, he's quite the live performer. He's a great singer and artist and all this. And, people just love to go see him perform. It's kind of odd that a guy like that, who's such a great live performer, would have, would not really want to go on the road for whatever reason. I don't know if it had to do with his drinking, if he missed his family while he's on the road. Probably a combination of all that. But, no, it's interesting because that back in that day when Joe Cocker was just starting out, that's how those musicians and those bands made the bulk of their money, was going on the road,
Well, that's right. From going back over his Wikipedia page, he's from the town called Sheffield.
Which is also where the band Def Leppard is from.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the first couple of bands, they were just local pub bands, just like you would be in a high school and college or early 20s, and you'd be playing around in your hometown. Just as a guess.
Yeah.
We did a lot of road work. You get tired of the road at some point.
Yeah.
That there's just the incessant travel.
Yeah.
The breakdown, setup stuff. When you get to be him, you don't have to break down and set up. You just have to be somewhere. That takes a toll on you just to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny because like even you, Vince, I'm sure, when you were younger and you were starting out to do your musical thing, that was the dream back then. That's just to get a show. And then, even doing what you're doing now, playing in the Mick Adams and the Stones, you guys I know go do a lot of shows, or you were at one point, So like when you guys would do a tour where you have a couple of dates coming up, does a band usually like tour in a bus together, or do you take your separate like vehicles and meet there?
No, we didn't own a van.
Yeah.
Every now and then we would have to cram everything in
to one.
and get in like a larger bus or something to go somewhere. But for the most part, if we go up to Vegas or we take a jaunt around Arizona for a week, something like that, everybody just brought their own stuff, came and go as they went.
That's cool.
Got breakfast on their own or whatever, and be able to meet back up, and then after performances maybe go out for a nightcap, go over the performance, what happened, the good, the bad, the ugly. And the thing though, for me, sleeping in your own bed
Oh, wow.
I like my own bed. I like to have my wife with me.
Yeah, you're.
And, you know,
Yeah.
25 years. I'm coming up to 25 years.
Oh, wow.
In 2 more weeks. So that when you're separated like that, it feels lonely. It feels even though you're with everybody else.
Yeah.
It's just not the same, and it does arduous to always hit the road. Get up early. Got to get into that next town in 4 hours to be able to set up and have a sound check. But play late that night.
And you guys have been doing for a number of years now, so I'm sure you got it down. But let me ask you, when you do have a gig, what takes so long? Is like just getting suited up, or what's the hardest part about what you do?
What takes so long? Like, what do you mean?
Well, like getting ready for a show. Like, you know, like for example, I know you probably got the songs down because you guys have been doing it all these years. But like, you know, like trying to look the part. Is that what takes the longest? You know?
No, actually getting to the show takes the longest.
Wow. Okay.
Literally, that's what takes the longest. Once you get into knowing how to do your makeup, that takes. It took me 10 minutes.
Wow.
Because he had a very low key, and it was just throw on the hairpiece, and then what was the other thing? And then set up. It takes about 45 minutes, an hour, and then you've got the sound check. Now, sound check is a bear because you never know how it's going to go in a new hall. What the sound's going to be like, or if nobody's worked with you before, do they understand how to balance out the sound? We would have to have Mick and somebody else go out front. Can you turn this up? Can you turn that down? So that takes some time, and it's hurry up and wait. Go through the drums, go through the bass, go through the guitar, blah blah blah.
Seems real tedious, right? But you got to do it.
It's got to be done, and then you need enough time to be able to play through a certain amount of material to get a feel for the room, to get your levels just right. You want to be confident when you take that stage, and sometimes when you've got 2-3 acts going on before you, something gets messed up as far as settings go. And sometimes they don't, but when they do, it's like so you have to almost stop the performance and have them readjust you on the way. Not really stop it, but
getting back to
with people.
Get back to Joe Cocker, but I urge you, Vince, because I know what a fan you are of his, and you've probably seen some of the stuff. But I was looking today on YouTube, and you can see a lot of like even audio clips from his Woodstock performance, and it's kind of interesting because when you go on the official Woodstock page, as we've been doing each episode of Remembering Woodstock, there's a page for each artist that played that day, and it tells, and people can go there like we've told them before, and you can see the set list. Like for example, you can if you wanted to look on the Joe Cocker page, it'll tell you every song he played that day. Now, typically on the other pages that we visited when doing this, it typically tells you a little more detail about each performance. Now, what I noticed on the Joe Cocker page is they really don't go into a lot of detail about anything except for the fact, like we said at the top of this, that the rain came after his performance. It basically just said, Cocker was in the music business. He was pretty well known, but he became a major player in the music business after Woodstock, and he did also play the Isles of Wight Festival, but it was, to this day, he's remembered for that Woodstock performance. And you talk to anybody that was there, that's where people really got to see Joe Cocker for the first time. That was like his first major event, I think.
Absolutely was. What really catapulted him was with a little help from my friends. In the movie.
Wow.
Like when we were there, that song had already been a hit for him on the radio. It was a well-known tune, at least on FM. People knew it. But the performance was electrifying. When you see it on the movie, you see why it was electrifying. When he does that scream, that he did it on the record. He did it live. We all cheered our brains out when we heard that.
Wow.
And then that whole drawn out, long, intense rock and ending that just got us all bananas.
Yeah.
It was absolutely stark, raving mad bananas.
And could you imagine being an artist like that and having a long career as he did, but then the one constant thing that people are constantly pointing to is your Woodstock performance all the way back from 1969, all the way back when.
I think that's a compliment.
Oh yeah, it's a compliment, but I mean that's kind of that it's kind of interesting that he had such a long career, but that's the thing everybody points to. You know, hey, that was when he was at his prime. You know.
Right, his iconic moment, and of course the biggest compliment anybody ever paid, besides, was John Belushi on Saturday Night Live doing his immortal Joe Cocker. In fact, he even got on stage with Cocker.
Wow.
On Saturday Night Live, and I forget what the song. Maybe that was a song, but he did that impersonation spot the heck on. And wow, huh?
Yeah, wow.
I mean, you just immortalized the guy. It's comedic, but it's really, when you impersonate someone, that's the highest compliment.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting you bring up Belushi because I saw an ad on Facebook that coming up November 20, I believe it's on Showtime. They're going to have like a movie that they did about Belushi. It's called Belushi, oddly enough. But you know, he was a great comedian, but you know, so much time has passed, even since Belushi passed, that a lot of people have forgotten about you know him. I think it's great to have a movie like that coming out.
82, I think he passed.
Yeah.
And you know, we miss him.
Of course.
We miss him, but he done it to himself.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Say that's a sad thing.
Yeah.
But that was the lifestyle.
Yeah,
you know.
That's when guys like, you know, Belushi, Robin Williams, I even say Sam Kinison, Andrew Dice Clay. That's when, you know, comedians were like rock stars. You know, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The '80s was
the time.
The rise of the stand-up was really the late '70s and the '80s, '70s, '80s. We have to mention a song.
Sure. About
Joe Cocker that we didn't, and it was later.
Okay.
You Can Leave Your Hat On.
Oh wow!
Which was from the film The 9.5 Weeks, a famous scene in that movie where the guy is and the girl they're starting their young relationship, and she does a striptease.
Okay, wow.
To this song, and let me tell you, it's really hard to forget.
Wow.
It was Kim Basinger and in her prime.
Yeah, wow.
And but that was. It's a great little tune, and all the horns and the sexiness of it. So he just didn't have one or two. He had a lifetime of hits and a wonderful career, right up until the end, like you said earlier.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting because you know, he's one of the performers that did play Woodstock that kind of, you know, was able to go on and have quite the career. So much so, I was also reading on the Wikipedia that. I forget what year this was, but it said he was ranked number 97 on Rolling Stone's top 100 list of singers of all time.
Of all time.
Yeah. I mean, he just made the top 100, but I mean, that's a big list to kind of. I'd like to see who else was on that list, but that's kind of a big list to be part of.
Right. Just remember that he really became more of a blues singer, and really did lean on Ray Charles's delivery a lot in his delivery, and then the arrangements were all different, you know, of all of the cover songs. But geez, what a life!
Yeah, and you know, before we wrap this up, I'm just going to end with this because you know you brought up that song you're just talking about that was in the 9.5 Weeks movie, and it's interesting. You get iconic singers like this, and they have their you know, music placed in movies and TV. A lot of these songs have been placed in, you know, more than one TV or one movie soundtrack, and it's amazing the impact having just a song placed in a movie can have on pop culture. You know, Joe Cocker, somebody who's been around, you know, for generations, and young kids might see one of his songs in a movie like that, and then they, oh man, I dug that song, and they find out it's from some guy that, you know, mom and dad listened to 30 years ago.
Absolutely, and also when I hear the song "Don't You Forget About Me," I think The Breakfast Club.
Oh yes,
I mean,
yes,
come on.
yes.
I don't even think of this. Who's the artist? I think of the movie.
Yeah, yeah. That's the point I'm making, and same
Right.
thing kind of with Stevie Wonder's song. I Just Called to Say I Love You. That was, of course, on the Woman Wore Red soundtrack. That's going all the way back to 1984. But I hear that song, I think of a movie. I see the movie, I think of the song. You know.
Absolutely, that's right, that's right. And when you hear "A Little Help from My Friends," his version, you think of the Woodstock movie.
Yeah.
And when I think of the Woodstock movie, I think of that song as the penultimate part of that movie.
Yeah, that time period. Another movie I don't know if you're familiar with from the '90s is like Wayne's World. And
very much so.
Because I mean, a good example is like you think of that song Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen. They, if you get the soundtrack, they had like a great list of artists like from the '70s and that. But it's that Queen song because that's right before Freddie Mercury died. They re-released that as part of the soundtrack. You know, that song had been a big hit from them back in 1975, and then Queen just kind of started selling their albums again, and everything kind of just took off. But that's a good example. You think of Wayne's World, you think of Queen.
Oh, that's the perfect example because they were kind of
on their final leg,
musically, you know, and then Freddie was getting into doing opera and things like that. And then all of a sudden, this shows up in a movie.
Yeah.
They're reinvigorated, and then there's history.
Yeah, and then they even got I think a British Rock Award or something for it, and that was right along the time, right when Freddie was really getting sick. They hadn't really toured in several years, but they were continuing to put out new music, and like you said, it was quite different than the '70s Queen, but people were still into Queen, and that kind of gave them final little life before Freddie died.
Absolutely, that's right. And let's just say, rest in peace, Joe. And just want to close this out with one other thing.
Sure.
Rest in peace, Eddie Van Halen.
Of course.
This is being recorded the day after we found out that Eddie Van Halen passed from this earth. It turns out that one of my now good friends, who lives right down the block from me, was not only an Eddie Van Halen fan, but he made a special guitar stand that he used to use on stage that is like his red and white
Frankenstein. Wow. So that's amazing. And
then my friend Mike started posting pictures of it and his remembrances of Eddie, and so R.I.P. Eddie.
Yeah, and I will just say this. I was like everybody. I was saddened to hear the news of Eddie's passing. I wasn't totally surprised because I'd heard things, especially over the course of the last year, where he wasn't doing too well. There were reports that he was going in between the U.S. and like Europe to get treatment. But so I wasn't totally surprised. But it's still, you're shocked when you hear something like that, and it makes me think of not just the band Van Halen, but his son Wolfgang and his older brother Alex. And it feels kind of for Alex because him and Eddie were like joined at the hip. They were like not just brothers, but they were like best of friends. And I heard since they played, since they were kids together, I mean, they switched instruments. Originally, Alex was a guitar. He started out on the guitar, and Eddie started on the drums, and then they switched. But I heard that like whenever they'd go and record in the studio or they perform live, they were like sonically linked together. They knew what the other one was going to play, and it's got to be hard for Alex, not to have that.
Yeah. Oh, jeez. So hey. Everybody who's listening gets not just Joe Cocker. They get Eddie Van Halen. They get everything from us.
Yeah. That's it's kind of whatever is up in there. But next time I think Joe. I can't believe this is episode 8 already. And the goal is we're going to do an episode on each performer that played there that day at Woodstock. Next up, we're going to talk about Sly and the Family Stone. So I can't wait for that. That ought to be fun.
Oh. Goodness gracious, yes.
Okay, well, you have a good day, Vince, and I'll talk to you next week, and we'll set up the next episode. Thank you.
Thank you, pal.
Okay, bye-bye. Have a good day.
Bye, everyone.